Hi, I'm Amy, and this is my journey to purpose. I was brought up in a very good Christian home, and parents that always challenged me to seek God with all that I had. Just sensing God saying, Amy, I've called you to love people unconditionally and help people in their journey of life. So I went off to college, and even in my first year, the relationship that I had back home fell apart. And so that was one of my hardest seasons, especially in college where everyone's dating and I felt like I was kind of in the waiting. I just wanted to be loved. I longed to be wanted by somebody. And at points, there were times in my life that I kept saying, but God, is there something wrong with me? Am I not good enough? Am I not pretty enough? Am I not skinny enough? And, and that's the lie of the enemy. And the enemy was trying to get me to believe that I wasn't worth it. When you're realizing what worth is, it's not about what a human can give you. When you figure out what your gifts are, what are your strengths, what are your abilities that God gave you, when you find fulfillment in that, that's worth. And I think we put it so much on the emphasis that it has to come from somebody instead of coming from God. I never for once doubted that God didn't have a spouse for me because he knew the desires of my heart. So I knew that that man was out there and I was being prepared for him and he was being prepared for me. A few months go past and I'm working with a friend of mine. This great guy would come around and he would do projects at my house and help me. And I'm thinking, this is great. I've got a friend and a project guy and we'll keep it at that. I had known he had gone through a really hard time in his life and he had gone through divorce and he had kids. I remember my uncle saying, Amy, why are you worrying about him being divorced with kids? And I said, well, because I never imagined myself being married with kids right away. And he said, but you also didn't imagine being single and 30 either. That man tried for 6 months, won me over in such a way that was amazing and beautiful, and the first man to honestly respect me wholeheartedly. I love that my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, pursued me 100% without physical. It was all emotional, spiritual, and relational. God said, this is what I meant for relationship. This is what I designed for you to be waiting for. The beautiful thing was my pastor was able to say that I kept myself for my husband. But on top of that, that we remained pure in our relationship. To me, that was the most beautiful part of our love story. So here we are married. I'm 32 years old. And in my mind is, okay, what's next? Let's build on our family. And I remember our first year of marriage, my husband and I were leading a mission trip to Nicaragua. And we were all doing devotions, and I felt very strongly from the Lord, again in my heart, Amy, would you adopt over having your own? I went to my husband and I told him what God had asked me, and he had tears coming down his face. And he said, Amy, he said, I've always had that desire. And we cried together, and we knew that that's what God had asked us to do. And a friend of ours approached us and said, Amy, my mom is a nurse, and there's a woman that can't keep her child. And my mom thought of you guys, and would you be interested? And my mind was just like, this can't be it. It's not the right timing. We've only been married for 2 years. And again, my life has been seasons of waiting. Everything in my life was I had to wait for everything. And here God is putting this opportunity, not even 2 years into our marriage. And I'll never forget my husband said, Amy, this is a wide door that we need to walk through. So in that moment, we took that step of faith. And 7 weeks later, we had a baby girl in our arms that I got to watch be brought into this world. I got to cut her umbilical cord. I got to stand alongside her birth mom and encourage her. We took a step of faith knowing that our daughter could have medical difficulties continually for the rest of her life, that we would be battling for the next year through an adoption that we thought would be so clean cut because God asked us to do this. But it was a story of faith and a journey of faith that is not for the weak. And I got to tell you that those months were probably the hardest months of my life. I watched my daughter struggle physically. I watched a birth mom struggle with her choices. And yet, I would always remember that God promised us this child. But I also said to the Lord, God, if she was only my child for one day, I'm going to rejoice because you made me a mom. And if you take her, then you chose me to love her for one day, and I will choose to take that love and know that I loved her well. And my husband said, Amy, I know this is our child, and we need to continue to believe and stand with God's promises. Because God gifted her to us, and he's not going to take his gift away. God's faithfulness doesn't mean doesn't come with hardship, and that there can be struggle. But a lot of that times is, are we going to hold on to God's promises? Are we going to fight through what the enemy is trying to steal from us? And are we going to stay grounded in his word and be reminded of the words that he's spoken into our hearts and in our lives? Going through that with my daughter and going through that with my husband and my kids just brought us even closer. And the bond that was formed with my boys and my daughter and their mom and their stepdad and us was such a beautiful commitment to one another to bring our families together, that Sophia is part of both of our families. My daughter just finished preschool and she's going to be going into pre-K next year, and she's going to be 4. And what the enemy tried to tell us and the lies of that our daughter's going to have all these complications. Our daughter's healthy. She is vibrant and full of life. And here we are. We moved back to Lancaster this year in faith because we knew God called us literally to this place and to Victory Church. And we are in a place of total peace, knowing we're exactly where God wanted us. Has brought us through many storms that have not been easy, but he's always remained faithful. We've always trusted his promises, and that we know that he's a good God, and that our journey continues, and that we know that there will be good days and there will be bad days. Our God is with us, and he's faithful, and we will continue to trust him no matter what the enemy tries to bring against us.